Hello everybody, good evening. Welcome back to the stream. It is I, DigiDriver. Tonight I am in MSFS, but I'm not flying anywhere. I'm not doing any scenery dev either. This is going to be a bit of a curiosity, a bit of a weird stream. I am legitimately only going to be doing a bit of sounding out biz dev in chat and with you guys. This is, generally speaking, going to be a short stream. I'm planning to do either a scenery development or a flight sim stream a little bit later, I think, on Sunday. But in terms of what I'm trying to do tonight, just trying to get some thoughts out of my head and think about the future. Now, I've taken some things into consideration the past, I think probably 2, 3, 4 weeks, and thought about some of the IRL responsibilities that I have, and some things popped into my head, some questions that I wanted to ask myself, and so I took time to do it. Okay, well, for starters, let's talk about the elephant in the room. I've been venting and talking to friends and people that I chat with online. Unfortunately, Mrs. Digi and I had a really rough week this week. A person that we cared a lot about passed away, and we are going to attend a service for them at some point. Suffice it to say, it was something that, even though it was somewhat anticipated, saying goodbye to somebody that you love is never something that's, what's the best way of saying it? Well, obviously, it's never easy, and it's never something that you can prepare for, even in the slightest. Let you know, like, somebody that you know, somebody that you don't know. When they pass, it's just it's a different experience each time. And I've talked about this on and off stream. There were some people that I knew this year that I had to say goodbye to for a number of reasons. They passed away, and it was hard. This one is not that it's quite hard too. So the next few days are probably going to be bittersweet at best and downright difficult and hard to deal with at worst. So that's given me pause. It's given me a chance to think about certain things. I do look forward to and hope that this individual is someone that I will see again one day in heaven. As a Christian, that's what I believe. I want everyone to have a personal relationship with Christ and know Him as Lord and Savior. But I let chat and I let the people that I talk to in real life make that decision for themselves. It might be a little loud, so I'll just like step into the plane for a little bit. I'm inside the A310. I think at some point I'm going to want to fly or learn how to fly this plane, because even with the growing pains of having this bird be in the sim, it just looks like such a nice plane to fly. And I think I'm going to want to fly this at some point soon. So I'll probably learn the ropes and figure out how to get some flight time in it, because I think I like it a lot. With all those things said, I spent some time away from stream and from scenery dev earlier this month. I took some time away with family, took a trip, flew to a specific location, and I spent a week away from scenery dev, away from flight simming. Not a total week, like, at least a good 5, 6 days. And it was wonderful. I got to hang out with family, eat lots of wonderful food, and came back, wanting to do a bunch of things. I transitioned back into work, and it was difficult to get going. Like, I just felt slow, but eventually I found my rhythm again, and we got back to the business of doing what I do in real life. What I'm noticing right now is that it's becoming harder and harder for me to be an IRL software guy and also be a scenery dev. This has happened at one point before in my life when I had a hobby that I was doing that was creative. And then what happened was I started working as a developer, writing software, which requires quite a bit of brain power, thinking creatively, or thinking about solutions to problems. So, what happened was over time, I noticed that I was spending more time doing work and less time doing the thing that I was doing after work. So, my IRL job and the hobby that I was pursuing at the time weren't compatible. Was it impossible to continue what I was doing? No, no, it wasn't. It's just that it became harder and harder. I don't think that's too loud. It became harder and harder to maintain the same amount of energy required to continue iterating that hobby. So, fast forward some years later, I feel like I'm starting to find myself in much the same position. I want to dedicate more and more time towards scenery development. Scenery development in Microsoft Flight Simulator and in other simulators like X-Plane and P3D is not just is not just the idea of, you know, putting things on the ground so that, the terminal looks like this, or so you put these cargo crates or this luggage lifter here, or this front loader here. You design an airport, you create the taxiways where the simulated aircraft travel if you have live traffic or simulated traffic. You you create something that people can download and use in their sim. And there's also more and more things that I feel like I'm beginning to uncover with regards to scenery and what's expected and what actually happens when you create an airport. It's like there's code that you can use to create certain events, like what happens during certain times of the year at the terminal building, or if you show up and maybe an airport luggage rack starts to move because they're offloading luggage from your plane. This, by the way, is one of the handcrafted airports that released with, I think, the Premium Deluxe Edition. Correct me if I'm wrong. I know this came with one of the editions of Microsoft Flight Simulator, whether it was Deluxe, Premium Deluxe, or just the standard version, I forget. But I'm just taking a look at the scenery to illustrate a point. Somebody spent a very good chunk of time designing this and creating something that was going to be downloaded and used by people, even if it was just for the sake of including it in the default version of the game or the premium version of the game. They spent time, even if they just created a basic model, they spent time creating the airport. So I'm trying to determine what I want to do about this going forward. Some of you recall I released Whiskey Niner 4, my very first payware airport, earlier this fall on Sim Market, and I had a bunch of freeware airports released on FlightSim.to. A couple in the US and one in Canada, one just outside of Edmonton. So if you look up DigiDriver on FlightSim.to, you'll be able to see the airports that I released. I haven't updated them yet. I think I would like to, because essentially they're long overdue for updates, and on top of that, I've learned more about flight sim scenery development in the time that's passed since. So I think I'd like to apply more things to those airports again and make them look even better. The not the trick, the concern that I have, of course, is being able to keep that sustainable versus my primary responsibility at the moment. Like I said before, I have an IRL job, and my IRL job takes a lot of brain power and commitment and dedication to accomplish. Likewise, scenery development, whether it's at MSFS or X-Plane, takes a lot to accomplish as well. I'm going to say this username, and I know I'm going to get the pronunciation wrong, so I apologize in advance. Rollymile9, thank you so much for stopping in today. Really appreciate your patronage. I'm just having a bit of a biz dev stream tonight because it's getting late. It's 12:43 a.m. Eastern time in the US, so I'm not going to have enough time to do a flight because I'm going to be getting up tomorrow and taking care of an errand or two before I get on with the rest of the afternoon. And Saturdays, my belief is it's family time or rest time. So I don't want to be doing stuff associated with work on Saturday. I will most likely be streaming on Sunday and either doing scenery development or a flight. On a good Sunday afternoon, in the sense of me having a nice chunk of time to try doing things, I could probably do a little bit of both, but I'm going to pick either doing scenery development or doing a flight in MSFS or X-Plane 12 to, have some fun and bring in the rest of the week. I'm talking about how I want to approach scenery development and even things like Twitch streaming in the months and in the year ahead. It's absolutely crazy to think that now we're coming up on the end of 2022. It came in so fast and it left even faster. It was this point last year that I was doing loads of flights in Lockheed Martin's Prepared. It was like version 5.1 or 5.2 at that point. I don't think they released 5.3 until the beginning of 2022. And I was flying out of airports like this, and I was messing around with my old sceneries and having fun and downloading lots of traffic files. And what happened was I got to a point sometime around March or April where I just stopped and I was like, I don't know. This is starting to really feel same, and it's not like, as engaging as it was. And it's not that I didn't want to be a flight sim streamer anymore. I wanted to fly and I wanted to share my experience with people. But I guess at the time I was either having doubts about my ability to provide appealing or interesting content, or I was literally burning out on flight sim streaming because it was something that I'd done before and repeatedly. And my channel wasn't experiencing the kind of growth that I wanted it to experience. So I got to a point where I said, you know what? Let me take a step back. I did. And then at some point, I started thinking about doing scenery development. So fast forward about 7, 8, 9 months, and here we are in December. I've released KHIG, KRCM, and Charlie Zulu Victor Lima on FlightSim.to. I released Whiskey 904, W94 on Sim Market. Excuse me, and I've got a list, a pretty good list of airports that I want to create. But I want to create them in a form that's sustainable and supportable. So I've thought a good deal about the options that I have available, like, getting support through subscriptions and donations on Twitch, and also providing subscriber-based content or subscriber tiered content elsewhere. I had I had something which I set up at the beginning of the year or the middle of the year, and it was called Buy Me a Coffee. And I've also decided to turn on the cloud bot for my Stream Deck. So if you guys do exclamation point coffee, there is a link which appears with a link to my buymeacoffee.com page. You can go there if you want to provide some kind of tangible thank you for what I do. It can be a one-time donation of support. You can set the amount, or you can actually do $1, $3, or $5. Or you can also do a membership-based subscription. Now, I'm playing around with the subscriptions right now. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have $5, $10, and $25 a month tiers for the subscriptions. I don't know if I'm going to keep the funder and architect level tiers for subscriptions. Those are obviously, or not obviously, but I'm stating it to make a point. Those are subscription tiers that I'm keeping just as a test. I am certainly not expecting anyone to subscribe at that tier unless that's a subscription level that they want and they feel like supporting the channel to that extent. I mean, hey, if you run your own mansion and you've got a 7-figure salary and you feel like supporting me at the architect level or giving me a, I don't know, $5,000 one-time donation, that's up to you. And clearly it will be appreciated. But at the same point, I think many of us are trying to hold on to what we're making. We're really trying to put our eggs in really worthwhile baskets. It's a take on an American phrase. Don't worry if you don't understand. Essentially, what I'm saying is, if you're taking time to consider what it is you want to spend your money on, and you don't want to spend it on things you can't see yourself getting a value out of, that's a wise move. That's called being intelligent. So it's no biggie. I've given myself a challenge. I would like to see in the coming year ahead if it's going to be possible for me to create one or two more payware level airports and release them. The reason why I'm using avenues like buymeacoffee.com and maybe even Ko-fi, which if you do exclamation point Ko-fi in chat, KOFI, you'll be taken to my Ko-fi page. I haven't set up subscription tiers there yet, and I'm not sure if I'm going to, because buymeacoffee.com under my approach or landing page, Digi123, is it already has subscription tiers, which you can see when you go there. The biggest question that I have is, do I have what it takes to run the business, to create airports, to do all that stuff? I'd like to say I do. I have a still hasn't gone out. The fire hasn't gone out for me with regards to wanting to create products that people can download and use. But at the same time, you know, I mentioned this before. I'm probably going to mention it several more times before this stream is done. I have to be an adult as well. I am internet shielded years old, and I live in the town of internet shielded state. It's a bit of a little jest, but essentially, I'm at a point where, as much as I enjoy my hobby and I want to share it with you, with anybody lurking, with everybody watching on the VOD, I also have to make intelligent, rational decisions that determine whether or not I can create a living based on that. And I think there's two approaches to this. Number one, jump in, both feet, do the things, and release the airports and just see who buys them. The other approach is see if you can create a support base that allows you to begin transitioning into making airports kind of like this on a full-time basis. What does that mean? It's not changing anything with regards to how I stream or when I stream. As a matter of fact, like I said before, I am very much going to continue streaming and try to stream on a consistent schedule over the next several months at minimum, which means one stream on the weekends on a Sunday and try to do at least one other stream during the week. Technically, it is still the week and not the weekend in the sense that Friday is a weeknight, but I don't know if it's going to be Friday and Sunday. I'd like it to be Wednesday and Sunday, like a Wednesday break, a chance to catch up with you, to share what I've been working on as much as I can in light of the new support systems that I'm trying to create so that I can do things like create a base of ongoing support, which allows me to earn the money, which allows me to then devote the time and the resources required to be able to create the airports and then have a better chance at actually releasing them. So that's where I find myself right now. If I succeed, if I'm able to actually create a product and create a user base and propel the company forward, Digi Scenery Studio, then that's something I'll be able to turn into a company and a brand and a way of just doing life, creating airports, being involved in the flight sim community, working with other developers, maybe even meeting some of you at future meetups or events, things of that nature. If I fail, it's most likely not going to take away my interest or my desire to be or remain in the flight sim community. If that happens, it will be because I either pushed too hard and burnt myself out, or because I had invalid or unsustainable expectations. Because that already happened to me earlier this year, I have a better understanding of what burnout looks like, of the things that I was bringing into my hobby that benefited it and that hindered it, and what I want to be doing a year from now. A year from now, I think I'd like to be pushing way more to create airports and to be in a position where I can take time to do the same without having to think about, oh, I got to pay this bill, I got to pay that bill, I got to pay all that. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to get into an absolute ideal position in less than a year's time. But I think creating the opportunity to create the platform, to create the support base that allows me to create the airports, which I can release as payware or freeware, and figure out some way to monetize on both platforms on any sim, is going to be a start. You know how, like, when you play a game like, Sorry or Monopoly or even Othello, when you get to a point where the board starts looking like things are going your way, you know how you feel, and you know how you're trying to either finish the game or get to the victory condition. You're playing your moves, you're ahead of the game. If you're playing chess, putting someone in check, I'm sure, has a good sense of satisfaction, because you're driving the outcome, or at least you think you're driving the outcome. Now, clearly, I haven't played that much chess in my life, but I've played enough of it to understand that even if you put someone in check, it's entirely possible they might not only be able to get out of check, but they might be able to put you in check or even go to checkmate. And then the game is over and you're done. That's where I am. I'm certainly not done with building airports, but the past couple of weeks, the past 3 weeks, I've noticed that my energy level has dropped a little bit as I've tried to get all my ducks in a row and figure out how to do things. Does that mean that Digi shouldn't be doing airport design? No. It just means that I've been spending a lot of time trying to figure out how to do it the best way possible. And that has made me expend energy and resources to try to figure out what the best approach is, what I should be doing, yada, 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 all that stuff. So that brings me back to present day. And you, as a viewer, you might be wondering, like, well, what in the world is this dude talking about? Like, why are we not flying? Why is he not even doing scenery dev right now? Well, I don't have a whole bunch of time. After this stream, I'm probably going to chill for a bit, go to bed, wake up tomorrow, spend some time doing things with the family, and rest. Probably do a flight, probably fly on VATSIM, most likely not stream. And then on Sunday, I will do a condensed stream. I'll either do scenery development or fly a fake plane out of a place like, New Orleans, Orlando, or I don't know, overseas like France, Amsterdam, or go to Southeast Asia and fly an airliner, or do another of the old school landing missions, like when I landed at the Princess Juliana in the A310. That was an adventure because I'd never flown the A310 before, and I had a lot to learn. But we'll see. I'm definitely going to be doing another stream this weekend, unless the Lord says, nope, you ain't got time, bub. You got to do this or that. I'm not going to force it. If I have the ability to do it, I will. If not, I'll probably have to postpone it. But, like a very good friend of mine actually said a month and a half or 2 months ago, or a month ago, I am going to continue to stream on Twitch and provide flight sim content for the community to consume either as freeware or as payware as I'm able to do so. I need to take care of my family and make sure that the things that I can do as an individual to secure that happen. If that means that I need to take time off of my now, you know, light biz dev thing to make sure that the bills are paid and the lights are on and all that stuff gets taken care of because of X, Y, and Z variables, then that's what I have to do. I would like it more if I had the ability to use flight sim as an industry and as a pursuit, which allowed me to do the same. And if it meant that I had to forego some of the things that I normally do, which really don't matter that much to me to begin with, and free me up to pursue this as a full-time pursuit, then I think letting go of some of the creature comforts that I'm accustomed to make that a reality is a better sacrifice than making X number of dollars a year in an industry where I like doing software development, but occasionally the work doesn't speak to me as much. Now, like I said before, don't get me wrong. I'm making a fairly pretty penny off of what I do in the real world. So, one very real possibility that happens at the end of next year, if I don't hit the kind of numbers that I want to hit for selling airports or having the time to design things which will turn into monetization opportunities, then I'll pull back a bit on streaming. I'll probably stream only once a week again, or maybe even once every other week, just to make sure that I have time to recharge and to think about things that I want to do. I'll release airports way less often. I'll still release them, but it will come at the service of me learning how to manage my time better, how to manage my resources better, hang out with people that give me the ability to look at things more quickly, things like that. Being an adult means learning to make the difficult decisions and learning what the difference is between a decision that benefits you now versus a decision that benefits you now and in the future. And many times, our expectations of what certain things actually mean for us, they're different than what, we actually understand they're going to be. There's a long-winded explanation in there somewhere. Not that this stream hasn't been long-winded, but there's a long-winded explanation that says something like, "Hey, um, this is it. Like this is me. This is me trying to figure out how to manage all these things so that I can make the jump to using the talents that I've accumulated as a software developer to create scenery. Because there is code you can leverage to create even more interactive or enjoyable scenery than what you have in MSFS or Explain right now. I'd like to spend time reviewing that and seeing if it's possible, but if I'm unable to turn that into something that will benefit the community, if I'm unable to be able to spend time creating it, then obviously, if I still want to create those airports, they're going to take considerably longer. And over the summer and the beginning of the fall, I transition from learning a lot of new things and trying things out and creating small airports, then bigger airports, then bigger airports, and actually creating my first payware airport. I transitioned from not knowing to knowing that there's a lot more that I need to do. What does that mean for you guys? Well, when I stream going forward, I'm going to have my cloud bot turned on, which means you'll be able to use commands like exclamation point lurk and unlurk and Kofi and coffee. Kofi is a like a Patreon alternative platform, but I have more clout, not more clout, more set up on buymeacoffee.com. And if you type exclamation point coffee, you'll be taken to the page which actually has a link where you can actually do a donation or even sign on for a membership service. Two-Faced Disc, my friend, good evening to you. I really do hope you're doing well. Folks, if you haven't already actually followed Two-Faced Disc, please feel free to do so. He's one of my very good friends of the channel, and he's been streaming for a while. Unfortunately, what happened was that he, we'll say, ran into technical difficulties which are preventing him from doing flight sim streams or variety streams at the moment. Merry Christmas to you too, my friend. God bless you. I hope that you're doing very well tonight. We are having a bit of a biz dev jam, and I'm talking about some potential things that I can do, like using buymeacoffee.com to drum up some extra support and talk about the future of the platform. I think I'm going to be releasing at least one or two more airports. You have an update on the PC issues? Dude, spill the beans, please. I'd be more than happy to congratulate you on your success if you're making headway on what you need to do. This is great news. You might be hearing it here first, chat. So you have an update. I'm sitting in suspense already. Might be a really big chat message coming through. You have a working PC again. Praise the Lord. Awesome. Oh, that's amazing. Dude, congratulations. Oh man, I can't even imagine the smile on your face right now. Even if the circumstances aren't ideal, you have a working computer again. I respect that, my friend, and I am so happy for you. This is what I'm talking about. I'm glad to hear that you are at least getting back up on your feet again in terms of being able to use the PC, because I know how much that sucked, or at least, I'm sorry, I don't know how much that sucked, but I can imagine it sucks a lot. Actually, some years back, I had Flight Simulator X Steam Edition running on my older computer. I got to a point where I had so many scenery packages that a update to the software, I think, crashed my sim. I couldn't run it at all. And when I tried uninstalling it and reinstalling it, it still didn't work right. Nice. Nice. Okay. Yeah. Dude, I used to have fun flying FSX, and people were flying like, P3D and X-Plane, and I was flying on my old tablet PC, and then I got SimRig 1.0, which had basically the equivalent of an i5 processor and like a 4 gig graphics card, and I was flying into like Palm Springs and Orlando and San Diego and doing long hauls and just having this raw unfiltered fun. Like I would start at the gate at Orlando with all my lights turned on because I didn't know that much about flying planes. It was just great. I was learning how to fly on VATSIM. Well, there we go. There we go. Um, the the monsoon landing mission, the winter resort mission or resort delivery mission, the what other mission? Caribbean landing, clearly. Landing in Telluride with the Learjet. Those are some of my absolute favorite missions, and they're more nostalgic for me than anything, which is one of the reasons why I want to create airports for people to purchase and to download. And yes, I think I do want to create some more freeware. Toothpaste, I have another story for you. I liked flying those missions long before I got my hands on Navigraph. And then one thing happened. Once I started getting really comfortable with Navigraph, I decided to retry the missions using the moving map and Symlink. I flew the Yakutat mail delivery mission in like the driving snow. I was able to land because I had the things guide me to the runway, even though I was so crabbing into the wind for a crosswind landing. The fishing trip and the Rome Naples run mission. The Rome Naples run mission was fantastic. I liked that a lot because it was a relatively short flight. It's essentially it's essentially like a stream happy flight. Like you could do that mission back to back with maybe the Quito landing, the old Quito landing, and spend like 50 to 75 minutes and just have like a quick stream. If you were that kind of person that only did like an hour or 2 hour stream, you could easily just do two of those missions or two of those missions plus a quick mission like landing in Telluride or landing in the Caribbean. The Caribbean landing mission was the one that made me really appreciate uh, the CRJ, the 700, when it was just, a few flip switches and stuff like that. You remember the classic FS2000 missions. I didn't have the FS2000 missions. I flew FS98 and I had the training missions. And the training missions were not easy because the training, it had a very low threshold for failure. So if I did one thing wrong, it was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, you don't seem like you want to fly right now. We'll just wrap up the mission." I'm like, "But wait, that was it was a great time." But I mean, when FS 2004 came out, when I finally got the PC to be able to run FSX, it was a trip. You know one of the things that I liked? With FSX Steam Edition, I started by flying it on a tablet PC. This was back as far as 2014. And the cool thing about flying it, I had a Surface Pro 3 that was running it. I would touch the screen to flip switches. And to me, looking back on it now, that was such a trip. It was so enjoyable because you had the ability to physically touch the screen, flip a switch, arm something for landing, and you were good to go. Now, clearly, as the time went by, I realized more and more I needed more horsepower. So that's when Mrs. Digi helped bankroll SimRig 1.0 and SimRig 2.0, which I currently use, to be able to allow me to enjoy my flight sim experience more. And again, I think the history drives at least part of my desire to create great airports. I'm not at the point where I can remake Orlando International Airport by myself, at least not right now, because I need to be able to do that. Was that how you realized Mrs. Digi was the one? Oh, no, 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 dude. Um, I locked that up a long, long time before then. Way before then. I wasted very little time in putting a ring on her finger. And Mrs. Digi, in her time, was, and I think still is, an avid video gamer. It's just that the games that she plays are different than the games that I play. Like, I flight sim and stuff, but she likes, playing certain games on, like, her tablet, for example. However, here's a bit of Digi lore. I think part of the reason why she started getting more and more involved in flight sim was number one, she she got interested in it as I kept doing it over time. A bit of a rewards program. Well, no, she was more than happy to do that. She showed me the kind of games she plays. She likes playing she likes doing the games like slots, or she plays puzzle games, or she played, for a while she was playing like mystery, or like find the missing piece games or something like that. But she would play console games with me. There was there was a while, there was a kind of period between like the end of the 2000 mils and the middle of the 2000 teens where I wasn't actually flight simming. I know, right? And I was playing a lot of console games, and we would even play with our family members, and we would have I had I had an Xbox at the time, and I had four controllers. And sometimes, every once in a while, we would play a four-player game together. That was nuts. It was great. It was absolutely great. I don't know what happened. I think we got into a situation where we needed a lot more money. So I sold the stuff I had. I went back to using my laptop. And eventually what happened was I got my hands on a Surface Pro. And I happened to stumble into Steam to see that FSX Steam Edition was released. And it was $5. I was like, I'm not passing this up. So I grabbed it, started flying it again, and I realized, wow, it's been such a long time since I've flown this, and I really, really like doing this. Oh, and I jumped down the rabbit hole of scenery purchasing. And man, I spent so much money on print primarily Orbex sceneries, but then I went and bought some sceneries from Latin VFR, from FS Dream Team, and my hard drive was littered with them, freeware and payware. And that was just it. It was game over. Mrs. Digi and I were at the mall one day, and she was like, "Hey, dude, grab this." So she she told me about something, and I got my hands on Ace Combat 6, Fires of Liberation, and she found a used copy. It didn't have the box and the box art, but it's still, they were selling the game with the SciTech hands on throttle and stick setup. So I had a joystick and the throttle. So guess what I was able to do? I was able to use them on my computer, and I was able to really enjoy flying. I even got to a point where I had three joysticks, the SciTech combo, and a third joystick, which I was using the buttons on to be able to toggle the autopilot, the heading hold, the airspeed hold, all that stuff, so that I reduced the amount of times I actually used the mouse. And to be honest, I don't know why I don't program my buttons more on the joysticks that I have, because I think that would reduce the kind of mental agility required to keep a plane under control, especially in turbulence as you land. So I might take some time to do that. But if there's one thing that I've discovered or learned over the past, I'd say year, it's that the way you spend your time and the things you spend your money on really do speak about what you're trying to accomplish or what you're actually doing. I can sit here in my chair and tell you, I'm going to release 5 airports next year. But if I do nothing, if I don't put the time in, if I don't discipline myself and pursue doing that above, you know, watching TV or watching reruns or watching an on-demand series or, doing other things which detract from that. If I do that instead of actually doing the work of creating an airport, then the end of next year is going to come and I won't be any further along than I was at the beginning of the year. This year was interesting because it really introduced me to scenery development as it stands right now. And I like doing that. I like putting puzzle pieces together and creating content for other users to consume and to enjoy. And yeah, I'm going to create things so that people can congratulate me and say, hey, this is nice. There's a bit of functional narcissism there, which like I think we all have to an extent. Planet Neutral, hello. Thank you so much for coming in today. Thank you for following. Appreciate having you aboard as member of the Digi Fam. I am Digi Driver, and we are having a bit of a biz dev stream tonight. You might not know this, but I have released freeware sceneries on flightsim.to. You can look me up there as Digi Driver. I also have released a scenery on Sim Market under Digi Scenery Studio. It's W94, a private airfield. I'm trying to release additional airports, but I'm having a bit of a group therapy session tonight and just discovering when you get to a certain point where you want to create airports, but you're finding you're beginning to lose the energy to create them, and you still want to make them and you're not burnt out. It means that you have to make some intelligent decisions about how you're going to regroup and pursue what it is you want to do. And to be transparent, much of that learning has come from me having to say goodbye to people this year. As far as I can recall, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people in my life have passed away. One of them was just an online acquaintance. Some of you may know him as Sergeant Angelos. He was a regular on more than a few streams, like I think Bish's stream, Bish753 and Captain K-Man. I miss him already. And I didn't even meet him in person, but I communicated with him. The others were people that I knew physically. And when something like that happens in your life, and somebody that you were talking with a little while ago isn't around anymore because they've passed away, I don't care who you are, that that leaves an impact on you. Now, I was under the fortunate position of having amicable relationships with all of them. Do I regret not having been more in contact with them? Of course, there's always a bit of a teensy bit of self-recrimination because you're like, I should have spent time with them more on this and this day. But hindsight's always 2020, and take it from me, you really do want to give yourself some slack. I have a fond memory of somebody that recently passed away, and I got to spend time with them. And it was definitely more enjoyable, more bittersweet for me thinking about this. And it's something that I'm going to be processing over the next weeks and months. But I'm telling you, man, 2022 has taught me multiple lessons. And one of the most poignant lessons that I feel like I'm learning right now is that I don't know that I want to be spending more time pursuing things that make sense on paper, but do me no good and leave me feeling burnt out. What do I mean? I'll put it this way. Before I went on vacation, I was getting a lot or trying to get a lot done and frying my brain week after week, month after month. While I was on vacation, I wasn't thinking about what I was doing IRL in terms of work, and I came back really having enjoyed the experience. Why am I trying to shoehorn, quote unquote, happiness into something which happens to pay very well versus maybe potentially choosing to cut multiple things out of my life, which I barely even use anyway, for the possibility of being able to create a working business model? Now, to be honest, a phrase which I've continually used during the stream, I I know that this isn't the best time to be doing things, but what, like 60 to 75% of businesses that are still running today, I think they all got started under crummy circumstances. So, what would my excuse be? If I'm waiting for an ideal opportunity to kick this thing into high gear, it's never gonna come. There's gonna be some kind of problem, some kind of surprise, somebody that I know passing away, and it's never gonna be just right. It's never going to be something which is going to be, how can I put this, you know, easy to process. So, what makes me think that um the people that are in like the opportunities that I have, or the people that are doing things, what makes me think that I'm going to be able to wait for the ideal opportunity to jump in? There isn't an ideal opportunity. There's only now. So I don't know. I think I'll still wind up creating airports either way. But again, one of two things will happen. either the additional support options I have, like what happens if you type exclamation point coffee or exclamation point KOFI, Kofi. I haven't set up Kofi yet, but buymeacoffee.com has donation and tiered support levels for me to consider being externally supported to be able to run a business. If I'm successful, then I can turn that into something I can do on a regular basis, and I can talk about my scenery development. I can create maybe even some kind of podcast or, architect group, and we can talk about things and really explore how to create or nurture the scenery dev community. I could probably do something which, you know, really helps people get started with scenery development, whether it's P3D or X-Plane or MSFS. So I'm trying to create something which gives this thing size and growth. But one of the things I've always tried to avoid doing is putting people in an uncomfortable position. Like, hey, I need you to support me so that I can do blah, blah, blah. The moment you start even quietly implying that people need to quote unquote support you, you start, I don't know, you start, there's this kind of bleed through. You have certain people that will stick with you, but you also have certain people that will be like, oh, you know what? I knew it. I knew there was something up. Like, that's it. I'm out. But especially over the past year, I've come to understand just how difficult it is to create scenery, even like the scenery that you're seeing right in front of me. So let me do this. Let me reset. I don't think it's going to get muted when I go inside, unless I'm wrong. I think this is a parallax window. Yeah, this is like a solid building, so I can't go into it. But I want to learn how to do stuff like this. Create parallax scrolling so that it looks like you actually have 3D objects inside of a building when you don't. Or learn how to create more efficient use of polygons so that you can actually create nicer looking buildings without taxing people's software. In a nutshell, that's about it. I've taken much away from this year, and I am supremely grateful to the support and the motivation of the Flight Sim community, especially the Flight Sim community on Twitch. I am appreciative of people that have given me ideas for airports, some of which I've implemented. I'm I'm still amazed that I actually released an airport as freeware that people actually purchased. I can't believe that. It's nuts. Where I go from here is a function of how well I manage my energy and my time. Like I said before, I think I'd like to make this into more than a hobby, but I think I also need to put it in the Lord's hands and say, this is yours. I want you to be first in my life, God. And if you don't want this in my life, then you're going to make it plain and clear. And I'm going to be able to recoup that time and pour it into things that are more important. But I don't think this is, I certainly don't think this is a horrible way to spend time. I want to be able to create more airports and hang out with people that do. and see, and ask them questions and have fun and create things that are maybe silly and wonderful places to fly to and things that interact with your aircraft. I don't even know if those exist, but I'm just thinking about out loud. That's basically it. Um, Essentially, that's all I can do for now is think and reflect. This is a great time of year to do that in preparation for the next year. I don't do New Year's resolutions. I I have I sometimes have a very hard time following through with basic responsibilities, but regardless of how you feel about that, the beginning of the year is definitely a moment of reflection and pause, and it makes me think about what I want to do in the upcoming year. I would like to make this into more than a hobby. Do I know exactly everything I'm getting myself into? No. I think that's what kind of makes it fun and frustrating at the same time. Like when I'm trying to create something for an airport and I don't know what approach I want to take. I think the answer is just sometimes to jump in and to see what happens. And that might be what I have to do specifically with this business venture. So, yeah, folks, I think I'm going to go ahead and call it here. I appreciate you listening. my my stream viewers said I had 4 viewers at some point. Maybe it's more. Maybe it's 0 and I'm talking into thin air. That's okay. This is almost or on some level for posterity too. So I save these for myself as a way of maybe passing it on to one of my kids in the future, Lord willing. It says, Daddy, what did you used to do with all this, like, blah, blah, blah? It's like, oh, well, let me show you. And then we talk about the experiences that I had back in my day. But folks, have a great, great rest of your night. Thanks for listening to me. Thanks for paying attention. I will try to stream on Sunday. I will most likely, actually, you know what? I still don't know. I don't know if I just want a scenery dev or if I just want to fly. I'm not going to have time for both. So I'm going to have to choose one or the other. And lately, I have been flying fake planes almost as much as I've been doing scenery development. Actually, even more so. So I'm not in a bad spot in terms of diversifying my portfolio. I might do scenery dev just to show you some of the things that I'm dealing with in terms of hangar design, but we'll see. I think I'm gonna start heading out because I think it's really, really late in my corner of the world and not that many people that I know are on. I'm gonna let you folks find some wonderful people that are still streaming or chatting. And all the same, I hope you have a great, great rest of your night. God bless you all. And like I always like to say at the end of my streams, if you want to know true peace, you need to know the Prince of Peace, and that is Jesus Christ. Folks, have a great rest of your night, or day, or afternoon, or whatever. It's probably almost 8 o'clock over in the UK, so I really should be hitting the hay. So take care, everybody. And Lord willing, I'll be able to have a similar conversation like this again next year, but under much more interesting circumstances, or at the very least, way more relaxed ones. Take care of each other out there, folks. And until next time, we'll see ya. Bye.